Okay, welcome along to another lore video. Like and subscribe for more from the lore. And the news has broken that Salvation is Azimuth, and Taurus Mining Ventures, the faction that was supporting him, is Azimuth as well. And over the weekend, Taurus Mining Ventures renamed themselves Azimuth Biotech, and all the systems that they're in showed the faction under their new name. The services provided are the same as before, so only the faction name has been changed so far. And here is a Galnet article. Azimuth Resurgent. Salvation has announced that his partner organisation Taurus Mining Ventures is a modern incarnation of Azimuth Biochemicals. The revelation came via a public statement across all media channels. This is Salvation. In light of recent speculation, we are rebranding Taurus Mining Ventures as Azimuth Biotech. My intent is to prove that Azimuth has no further need to conceal its operations. 2 centuries ago, Azimuth's pioneers first acquired evidence of the alien creatures now referred to as Thargoids. My research division focused exclusively on studying this life form and preparing for the inevitable interspecies conflict. When Azimuth Biochemicals was commercially overtaken by Pharma Sapien over a century ago, I ensured key assets and personnel were removed from company records prior to the acquisition. We continued our research in secret, free from shareholders and corporate espionage. Since then, my team has led multiple projects to develop necessary advancements for the inevitable war. Our work with INRA on the mycoid virus was one early success. More recently, locating the Proteus in the trapezium sector provided us with a key breakthrough in weaponizing Guardian technology. My anti-Xeno superweapon has already saved billions of lives. Azimuth Biotech is currently developing the next generation of this weapon, with which I intend to permanently cripple the Thargoid War machine. Caleb Wycherley is no more, but his accomplishments lay the foundations for the man that I have become. A man whose life goal has always been to save humanity from extinction. So, whether Salvation is Caleb Wycherley or someone who's taken over his work isn't clear from context, but it doesn't really matter. The point is that most of these accusations that have been levelled at him over the last year or so are all turning out to be pretty much true. Or as AC/DC put it in their song Ain't No Fun Waiting Round to Be a Millionaire, the following is a true story, only the names have been changed to protect the guilty. Now I find this very unsatisfying, personally. Having someone appear to be a positive force for change and then turning out to be an evil nutter who's done all sorts of nasty things is a terrible old cliche, and doesn't say much for the quality of storytelling. It's especially disappointing when Arthur told me and the story makers have been talking themselves up as being sophisticated storytellers and being aware of stereotypes and tired old worn out tropes, only to show such an utter lack of originality after all. It's common for a story which is basically a very simple one to pretend to be more complicated than it actually is by having lots of deflection, misdirection and general obfuscation to hide how generic the underlying story actually is, drip feeding us with only what it wants us to know at any given time, and giving us nothing concrete to make an objective judgment on before hitting us with it. Game of Thrones did the same thing by adding artificial layers of complexity to hide the fact that it was a very simple story underneath all the deflection. There are also bits that are overly contrived, like Cornsar. If, as people have said, he put Guardian objects there to attract the Thargoids so he could test his weapon, why let them get attacked for 3 days before using it? Why the rigmarole and drama of delivering parts for it over the weekend? Why not have it ready to use? Just to make a point? Just to show people how much danger they could be in without his help? Maybe. And if, as we are forced to assume now, he ordered the attack on the Alexandria, why bother when a bit later on he won the CG to bring him Guardian artifacts against Aegis? Perhaps he was just making sure, by creating a situation where Aegis had already lost a megaship full of them, to make people deliver to him instead. But to me, this feels unnecessary. The lack of progress of Aegis was enough by itself for him to get all the deliveries he wanted. So both of these actions, with Cornsar and the Alexandria, come across as unnecessarily heavy-handed, contrived, and overly dramatic, just to make the point that only I can save you. And they both serve to make him look like a comic book villain, a psychopath along the lines of the Joker from Batman or the Master from Doctor Who. Unlike them, though, there doesn't appear to be any good reason for it other than to be dramatic, and it comes over to me as a bit silly. So Salvation and the story lose credibility for me by turning him into a caricature like this. If all this sounds like I'm disappointed with the way the story is played out, then it's because I am. Maybe I'm getting old, but I would prefer actual sophistication instead of artificial complexity pretending to be the same thing. A rather irritating and tedious tactic to try and hide the fact that they're just rolling out the same tired old cliches we've seen a million times before. Apparent good guy is really a psycho. Big wow. It was always a possibility, so it's hardly a revelation. Anyway, with all that said, I'll get off my soapbox now. It is what it is. So we have to go with it. I asked before why he would let us in on all the Azimuth backstory if it was going to put him in a bad light, and questioned the sense of doing that. But now it seems there are two factors in play as to why it worked out that way. Firstly, he describes the discovery of the Proteus, the ship that fled to Hesperus and landed at the Guardian site. He's flagging that as a recent discovery, so this would suggest that while he was reorganising Azimuth and hiding bits of it from Pharma Sapien so he could carry on working in secret, he lost track of some of Azimuth's assets himself, so he had no idea where the Proteus had gone and needed us to help him find it. And as we suspected, the experiments carried out by the crew of the Proteus on Guardian relics became the basis for his superweapon. Secondly, he was probably hoping that by the time he had the superpowers depending on him, he could just brazen it out and justify all the nasty stuff as a means to an end, trusting in their support to keep him safe from prosecution. So the setup as it stands seems to be that he has done all kinds of nasty things in pursuit of his research and got the superpowers to back him so that he can excuse it and use them to protect himself from prosecution. That didn't work out too well for INRA. It caused a massive public outcry, so this may not be the sound strategy he thinks it is. Also, at least one of his test subjects, known to us only as D2, is after revenge. D2 was the test subject at Oaken Point, part of Project Seraph. Of all the test subjects that they plugged into Thargoid scout ships, she was the only one to survive that process. Now she managed to escape with the help of one of the scientists there, who was later executed for helping her. And she was responsible for finding the DG Canum Venaticorum system and the logs there, which implicate Salvation, and sending that information to Professor Albert Ezro of Aegis, who is understandably now calling for Salvation to be arrested. So, where do we go from here? The most likely scenario is that D2 and Aegis will continue to push for Salvation to be arrested and convicted for crimes against the Alexandria, the people of Cornsar, heading up Project Seraph, and conducting illegal human experiments. The superpowers may give in to this pressure, or they might double down in their support for him. We'll have to wait and see. We also have whatever Professor Palin is working on, which may bring some 11th hour discovery into the equation as a result of the latest community goal. From his response to that, he seems to be focused on defence, so perhaps a breakthrough may come in that direction. What the consequences of it all will be for the war, for the superpowers, for Aegis, for Salvation, for the story, for whatever new content may come out of this, for us as players, and for the galaxy in general, is anybody's guess. But we do know that this story is nearing its end, so some kind of epic confrontation seems more than likely. But we're now waiting to see what happens next, and as soon as I know, you will. Thanks for watching as always.